is that I record this so that others can see it later. And I'm going to share my screen on just a second and bring up some slides that you guys can see while I'm talking. Let's see here. And then let me move it just a second. I should be a Zoom expert at this point, but there we go. All right, everyone can see that? Good. All right.
Yes.
I will go ahead and so thanks everybody for showing up for the information session tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give kind of an overview and then open it up to questions and comments, and anyone, you can ask whatever you want, or you can push things into the chat if it's going along, or even interrupt me. It's totally fine. We'll take it as it goes. So first, just again, this is the information session for the Energy and Action Sports Summer Sports Camp for 2023. So already you're like, wait, what's that? So just a heads up, Ray United FC is going through a rebranding, and we are changing the name to Energy and Action to reflect the broader kind of profile of activities that the organization now carries out in a, like, as opposed to where it started out as generally just a soccer program. And also because Ray really just didn't want his name anymore affiliated within the name, because it's so much broader, obviously, than Ray and his work. So this is the rebranding that's currently in process. So just a little bit of a history about the organization if you're kind of new to us. So Ray United FC was formed in 2014, and now we're in the process of rebranding. We've been taking young people to Uganda for service learning trips and activities since 2015, with the exception of just the last COVID experience, where we paused our in-country activities, but we continued to do a lot of work in the same communities virtually, and supporting where we had been doing very large community events that were more superficial or just wide reaching. We spent the COVID years working with a smaller group of youth, but going really deep and working really closely with them, because they had the opportunity to reach people within their communities that we didn't have that same opportunity to reach. And so this has amounted over the years to being dozens, really hundreds of students and young professionals who have participated in our trips and immersion programs to date. And these have included soccer camps, like is seen in this picture, is a soccer camp where we teach public health instruction and leadership instruction, as well as provide professional soccer training, as well as youth vision trips, which are shorter experiences, generally for high school students to go and do some service learning and do more kind of vision visits to various types of facilities and groups to kind of get an idea of the type of activity that's taking place in the country. And then this past year, we had the remarkable initial splash camp, which is our Learn to Swim and water polo program. So as I mentioned, over 5,000 Ugandan youth have been reached by our programming to date, and that is a far underrepresentation. Over 5,000 kids have just been in our soccer programming, so we've reached beyond that at this point. So just for this year's trip, we're doing it just a little bit different. We've had a lot of interest in the water polo and swimming program, but we've also had a lot of youth interest in our soccer programming, and continuing to provide that experience as well. So we're in the process of merging those two programs into what we're calling like our sports camp, where we can bring together more youth, and we can also offer more programming that would allow for both the swimming and water polo and soccer experience. So the goal this year is to leave right after the girls' Junior Olympic water polo session. We looked, and currently that's targeted to end on July 23rd. So really anytime after July 23rd, we're thinking we will depart. Keeping in the kind of the same general schedule as we had last year, we're thinking that the plan is we will leave on July 26th from the US. It takes 2 days to arrive in Entebbe because of both the length of the flight and the time change. So we will be arriving on July 28th on Friday morning. We spend that day unpacking, setting up our programming, kind of decompressing, sleeping, and then getting ready for the experience, let's say. And then on Saturday, we have a fun kind of icebreaker day where we go sightseeing in Jinja, which is the second largest city in Uganda. It's also on Lake Victoria, and it is the site of the source of the Nile River in Uganda. So we go there. This past year, the youth chose to go whitewater rafting, and it was really fun. And we're thinking that in the future, we'll probably continue to offer that type of an experience. There's also ATV experiences that we've provided in the past. So it's kind of a fun icebreaker, just relaxation and getting to know each other day. Our local staff also participates in that day. So there's some team building. Then on Sunday, July 30th, the plan is to have water polo and soccer exhibition games and team building with players and coaches in Uganda. So this is the opportunity to partner with like the Ugandan Swim Federation and the national water polo team, as well as some professional soccer players, and have a fun day of games and exhibitions and kind of community building. Monday through Friday, August 31st through July 31st through August 4th, we will do the public health, water safety, and sports camp. And again, this is I'll go into more detail about what's incorporated into the camp and what our youth do and participate. I should say that I think maybe all youth who participated this last summer are on the session tonight, so they can also speak to that experience in just a few minutes and about what they did. Saturday on August 5th, we leave the central kind of Ugandan capital area, Kampala, and we travel up to Murchison Falls in the safari park. And we visit a rhino sanctuary where we see rhinos pretty up close. And we go on a river cruise. It's kind of like the ultimate Disney jungle cruise, actually on the Nile, and see animals. And then we overnight in the park at a resort. Like more like a youth hostel resort in the park. And then Sunday, August 6th, we travel to Lira and we do an overnight with local families whose youth are collaborating with us in ambassador program and working with our organization. And then we return after that to Kampala and we shop and come home. So it's a very packed week, 10 days. That our youth participate in, and they get really an overarching kind of experience and a lot of time engaging with local community members and local youth. So just a bit more on what the camp itself involves. The camp is composed of a lot of different stations, and we bring in this past year, we brought in about 50 youth for the splash camp. We're thinking about doubling it or increasing it a little bit, even more than that this year, with more volunteers and more stations. But the stations involve interactive public health safety workshops. So for example, we teach the local school children who are living around Lake Victoria topics around first aid and water rescue, swim instruction, community drowning prevention strategies, water safety, as well as issues around sanitation, hygiene, and then kind of water sports. And obviously water polo, we teach basic water polo skills, and we engage in friendly water polo matches with Ugandan water polo players during the program. That was just limited to Splash Camp last year. This year, we're incorporating what we've traditionally done in soccer camp as well, by engaging youth and advancing their soccer skills with coaching from professional Ugandan soccer coaches and volunteers, and helping children kind of just overall learning the importance of leadership and teamwork through team sports. And we're teaching we'll incorporate additional public health education around sanitation, risky behaviors, sexual and reproductive health, and mental health to local school-age children. So these are between about 11 and 17 years old are the youth who participate. Yeah, this is just another picture from our program this past year where our youth were at an event with the Ugandan national water polo team, and just this idea of leadership and professional development, that the sports camp staff engage in leadership activities designed to boost confidence, establish lasting relationships, and promote professional development amongst our staff. So the staff is a major element of the program, as well as the youth participants. Here's just a few more pictures from the program. There's Abby instructing youth on first aid. There's Moses, who's the director of Swim Safe Uganda, talking to kids about water safety and basics of learning to swim and kicking. There we have Max and Kyle teaching water polo to a group of youth. And then we have Roman there in the middle with a bunch of very enthusiastic girls who are so excited to play water polo and participate in the program throughout the entire week. And these are pictures from our soccer camps, kind of the same idea, teaching soccer, running, working with our youth, kind of incorporating interactivity, dance, movement, all of the time. This is a workshop that was focused on nutrition, and they were planting fruit trees at the school where the program was running at the time to incorporate nutrition, better nutrition. There. And then one part of the program is that end of July is also World Drowning Prevention Day. And we have a strong collaboration with the Ministry of Health, Swim Safe Uganda, the Ugandan Swimming Federation, and USC to promote drowning prevention. And we participate in the World Drowning Prevention Day event in Uganda. And this includes exhibition water polo matches, water rescue and first aid demonstrations, as well as listening to testimonies from drowning survivors and first responders, and bringing in high ranking of policymakers from throughout the country and giving out awards. So these are just some pictures of the World Drowning Prevention Day from last year that we will participate again in organizing during the program next year. So in addition to the service work and the work in the camp and providing instruction, there is a lot of time for sightseeing. So we kind of explore Uganda's capital city, Kampala. We visit, as I mentioned, the source of the Nile and Jinja. We go to the northern Ugandan district of Lira, and that's where we do the homestay. And you can see a picture of the homestay location that the boys participated in this summer. So it's very rural, and you spend the night in a hut, and you participate in the food cooked over a fire, and there's no running water, there's no electricity. You can see on the top of the hut there is a solar panel there, so there's some level of kind of been charging their cell phones and some level of electricity, but very little solar charged. Murchison National Safari Park is amazing. That's where we go on a couple safari drives and the boat cruise. And I think this year our youth and everyone saw kind of all the big five. So you boys probably have to remind me what those are, but it's the rhino and the elephant and the lion and the leopard and the water buffalo. I think those are the five. I might have gotten them a little bit wrong. But anyways, there's everything you want to see. There's giraffes and all kinds of amazing animals. So that's really fun and exciting. I could never go on enough safaris, I think. So yeah. And then just to kind of talk about our partnerships just a little bit. I am a professor at USC and have been taking USC students to Uganda as well for many years. And I have a number of research projects funded by the National Institutes of Health and other funders, like kind of all the time working in Uganda and in this region. So I incorporate our research and our partnerships in with this program as well. We also work closely, as I've mentioned, and you've seen in the pictures, with Swim Safe Uganda and the Ugandan Swim Federation. We also work with some community-based organizations like Katsoi, who recruits the kids from the schools, and Children's Chance International, which is based in Lira and helps with our homestays and runs our ambassador program. We also work closely with Makaruri School of Public Health, and many of our team members and local volunteers are public health students and alumni, or medical students and medical alumni from Makaruri, which is a top university in Africa. It's a top university in Uganda and one of the top universities in Africa. And then we work with Football for Good, which is a organization in Uganda that is providing elite soccer training with the goal of training kind of the next big Premier League champion out of East Africa, which hasn't happened yet. And then just some like volunteer logistics for this year. So in terms of costs, the total kind of trip costs we're thinking is I think that's over 3,000 per individual. So the flights can be purchased individually, and they're about $1,200. Depending on when you buy them, they go up as we get closer to the dates. So it's good to be looking early and purchase when the costs are low. And the food and lodging costs about $1,500, and the program costs for all is about $500, and activities are another $500. So the actual program cost is $2,500 plus the flight. So that is that top number there is a little bit off. It should be $2,500 plus the flight is the total cost of the program. And we're confident that that is a great deal for what you're going to get out of the experience and out of the program. In terms of, and I can answer more questions about the flight, we've gone different ways and we've taken different flight paths. Traditionally, it really go by price and who has the best deal at the moment, but oftentimes we've flown Turkish Airlines through Istanbul. This year, we flew Qatar. Qatar has lots going on because of the World Cup right now, so everything seems to be going through Doha. So we did that this year and it worked well. We've gone through Brussels before. It just kind of depends on who has the best path in 1 year. Uganda does require a visa, so that needs to be, it's $50, and you apply online, and it takes about 48 hours to get. We had a bit of an interesting experience this past time when we had one delayed, but we were able to get it at check-in at the airport. So we don't want to do that again. So maybe we'll show it a few more days early. But in order to do that, you really have to have your valid passport. So this is just a plea to anyone who's even vaguely thinking about potentially participating in the trip to get your passport now. Because it takes a little while. So check that your passports are valid, get your passport updated now if you need to, so that it's back in time so that you can apply to the visa with a couple of weeks cushion.
Heather, if you have a current visa, I know that certain countries won't let you in if your passport is about to expire within a certain time period. Does it have to be like you have to have a 6-month cushion from the trip?
Yeah, so generally speaking, you need to have a 6-month cushion. So make sure that it's valid for at least 6 months past the travel dates. And also that you have at least 2 blank pages. In Uganda, especially, they use a sticker visa that when you arrive, and they take a whole page. And so you need to have at least 2 free pages in your passport. So the visa is actually really easy, but you just do need to have your passport, and you also have to have your yellow fever, which is coming up next in terms of health. And I imagine that many of you have questions about health and safety in Uganda. So I want to address that quickly. So in order to get your visa, in order to enter the country, you must have a valid yellow fever certificate. You only need 1 yellow fever shot in your life. And then once you get it, you get a little yellow book. That's your international vaccination book. And you need to have that with you when you're traveling. And now, of course, you also need to have your COVID-19 vaccine. So those are the 2 vaccinations that are absolutely required. WHO recommends additional vaccines for Uganda. Amongst these, they're not all, they're not all required, and depending on your health insurance, some of them can be quite expensive, and some of them you probably have already, which means kind of I would say, like, you really need the typhoid vaccine. That is definitely one that you want to get. Rabies, maybe you don't need to get because it can be very expensive, and you're not likely to be exposed. And if for some reason you were exposed, you can get the rabies prophylactic treatment in Uganda if there's any risk of you having been exposed. And I have done that there before with one student, just totally precautionary, extreme precautionary, but it also wasn't a problem to get those shots after potential exposure. So you're encouraged to contact your international travel health clinic within your healthcare providers network.
Heather, quick question. I see that malaria is not on this list. I know that when my husband went like 12 years ago, he caught malaria in Uganda. So is that still an issue, or it's
yeah,
not?
We actually had not one of our volunteers, but someone who kind of joined the group at a point this summer did get malaria. So I do want to emphasize, malaria is not a vaccination. I mean, there is now a vaccine for malaria, but not appropriate for our use. So what we do instead is we do take malaria prophylactics. So you have to take malaria pills when you go. And malaria rates in the country go up and down. And in the past, we've been maybe a little loose about it because we haven't had a lot of exposure. That has changed now. There is a lot of malaria currently in the country. So we are emphasizing and really stressing to all of our participants that they need to religiously take their malaria pills. And so we will be reminding our volunteers daily and emphasizing that and making sure everyone's taking them, because it's just not something that we want to have to worry about. And of course, we can take the pills and be safe. At the same time, we also sleep under malaria nets, and we also encourage everyone to wear long sleeves and long pants after sundown and during sunset and sundown. So there's multiple ways that we can protect ourselves from malaria. We also, just in terms of health and safety, absolutely bottled water at all times. That includes brushing our teeth and not consuming any water in the shower. And so knock on wood, not of wood, generally speaking, we do not have any problems with diarrheal diseases amongst our volunteers when we've gone. That's been pretty rare. The only things that sometimes happen is that during mango season, our students at times have gotten overly enthusiastic about eating too many mangoes, which can cause some dietary issues for a short period of time. So we try to remind our volunteers as well to not overdo it with the mangoes. But yeah, so, water safety is a big thing that we're stressing, and we're looking at. Malaria prevention is big, and we're watching it carefully. Typhoid is another water-based disease. So we're just, really careful about our water. And we stay pretty much in a pretty good bubble. And we only eat things that are cooked, right? So we don't eat fresh fruits and vegetables necessarily while we're there, unless they're peeled. So if you peel like a mango, then you can eat the inside, but you don't eat anything that hasn't been peeled. Because it potentially has.
Yeah. So no washing of fruit either, right? And eating.
Well, if you're going to wash the fruit, you have to do it with
Bottled.
clean water, bottled water. Yeah. Yeah. Or boiled water, which, if we go to fancier places to eat, which we do go to, kind of more westernized restaurants, then there's the opportunity to be a little more flexible. But generally, we encourage everyone to kind of stick with cooked food at all times. And of course, our youth get more ambitious the longer they're there. And so, street food becomes a very popular source of food while they're there. And again, we work really closely with our local volunteers and with Abdul, who's our driver, but he's also just our main coordinator and our main kind of security personnel for us as well. And we rely on them to kind of inspect and make sure that where we're going for any street food is sanitary. And then of course we're buying it right off the fire to make sure that it is safe and cooked. And we do and request that everyone get travel insurance, and we provide a website where you can buy that, and that is an additional cost to have that. And again, that's just some extra security so that if in any kind of emergency that you needed to be emergency evacuated from the country, that you would be able to access that and be flown out. And again, we have security protocols in place where it's really like we are in a bubble and we are on the bus and we're in our sites that we're doing our activity, or we're in our hotel, which is entirely, walled off and protected, or we know exactly where to get back on the bus to evacuate if we need to evacuate any situation. And, I feel really confident in saying that we've been working in these same communities for a really long time. We're very embedded in the community to the point that, the communities support us. And I don't feel that, we're at all targets. We're protected. The only other thing I would mention about health is, if you've seen the headlines right now, Uganda is having an Ebola outbreak. The thought is, cases are already going down. I'm thinking that by the end of this month, knock on wood again, I know we're all traumatized from the COVID experience, but knock on wood, the outbreak will be fully under control, hopefully by the end of this month, and certainly by the end of the year. And if for any reason that is not the case, we will reassess, but I don't see any reason why we would be concerned about Ebola by summertime, both because I'm very confident they'll have the current outbreak under control. And if for any reason, they also will have a vaccine. The vaccine's kind of being rapidly rolled out right now and tested. So I'm pretty confident by the summer, it will be under control. And of course, Ebola is also a very unique disease in that it's not easy to get if we're in our bubble, right? Again, we're very much in a bubble. So in terms of transportation, the volunteers are responsible for air travel, although we do coordinate as a group and travel together and arrive together. So if you want to travel separately, you can, but generally we all go together. And in Uganda, the volunteers are all picked up from the airport and transported together at all times in a group bus. It's the party bus. And so this is a picture of the party bus. We have music and potentially dancing and a lot of laughs and a lot of fun in that bus. In terms of food and what is Ugandan food? So all food is provided throughout the camp programs. Volunteers may be responsible for some snacks while sightseeing if they want, but generally even those we usually buy all together just because it's easier. Generally speaking, Ugandan food is pretty starch heavy. The typical meal is beans, rice, and posho, which is grits, cassava, stewed chicken or goat. And so yeah, there's some pictures of the food. No, again, maybe the boys want to say anything. This is the lodging pictures. So starting at the top or at the bottom, you can see this grass hut. This is the bar area of the safari lodge that we stay in. The pool and then the building behind it is the rest gardens where we run the swim camp and where the youth stay in that building. And then the other apartment building here is where they stay in Kampala. That's the Bukoto Heights, where they stay before coming home. They're all very nice kind of facilities. They meet all basic needs. There's running water, there's electricity, and there's Wi-Fi, at least hopefully. I'll come back to that in just a second. In terms of money, they really don't need any money other than, the program cost. But we recommend they bring about $30 a day. But generally that's just to buy